Did you spoke to Jerry?
Hijo de la chingada. Del 1 al 9, mira, todavía no me hicieron para sacar el 28 de clase.
Shit.
Oh, there it is. But let me see my body yesterday. No, I'm not
Here you go.
This is full.
Where's the professor join? Good morning. Did Professor join?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Do I have to turn my video on?
No.
Okay, cool.
It'll turn
Yep,
mine
there
off.
we go.
Oh, here he is.
There we go. Yeah, and, the way this is gonna work with the whole class, because it's a big class, there might be times we get logged off, and I apologize. But you don't have to put your video on the whole class. I'm just supposed to check. Oh, hi. Hi, Zaina. I'm supposed to say hi to you guys and just make sure everybody's in the class is registered. It looks like everybody got on. Awesome. I sent out 2 key things for the first class, which were that connect link to the McGraw-Hill platform and the syllabus that has the schedule and the grades. So just gonna start by having you guys go one by one, introduce yourselves. So can you see the other attendants after me, like Susan, I guess is the next one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you could just say something, introduce yourself, and share something with the class.
Hi, my name is Susan. I'm gonna be attending this class with you. Yeah, I have other classes too. I just completed my first one, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. This is.
My name is Dana, and I'm taking this class because I'm trying to become a nurse. So yeah, I hope you guys are doing well.
Hi guys, this is Lee. I'm taking this class as part of prereqs for becoming a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. So I'm also with you, Jocelyn, on being a nurse. My background is in musical theater, but currently a strength coach at a physical therapy office for about 5 years now. So I'm excited to be here.
Let me know when it's my turn, because I think your order on the screen
Yeah, I
might
got
be different from mine.
Jorge Pais. Jorge, could you say something?
Hi, my name is Jorge. So this is actually like my first class of all, so like I'm kind of getting new to this. In June.
Wow.
And I'm taking anatomy and physiology 1. My major is psych, and I hope to one day become like have a job in the neuro field.
Cool. And Lee?
I just went, but Lee again here. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and Ryan?
Hi, hold on. My name is Ryan. I'm taking this class as part of my prerequisites for my medical imaging certificate. Right now I work part-time at FedEx, and my brother said this class might be a little bit hard, and so did one of my medical friends, but I'm looking forward to learning, and I'm glad to be here.
Good. Yeah, the class is challenging. I mean, that's a good point. And Julia?
Hi, good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm taking this class as a prereq for the nursing program. Yeah, I'm excited. I've never taken anatomy or really anything like it. I haven't been in school since 2011, so it's been a bit, but I'm excited.
Wow.
Yeah, no, this class it's tough, but it's really cool. Like, there's a lot of good things that we get to cover.
Yeah, I'm very interested. I'm excited for the class.
Nice. David?
Hi, everyone. My name is David. I'm taking this as a prerequisite for an anesthesiology license. I'm a Bunker Hill attendee as of 2 years now, and nice to be with you.
Excellent. And Ashla?
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I'm taking this as a prerequisite for the nursing program, and I'm actually a student at UMass Boston too. I'm doing it as like a guest student here.
Nice. And I just lost my screen. You jumped up. So Jocelyn, I think is next.
Yeah, I went already.
Oh, you went. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't see it before. And then Morlin.
You have yourself muted.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Bunker Hill for a year now. I'm taking this class as a prerequisite for the nursing program. Actually, it's a career change for me because I have a BA in marketing. So it's completely different, a whole new adventure. So I'm living in the United States for over 3 years now. I immigrated from Honduras, learned the English, just a whole new journey.
Wow.
Thank you.
Awesome. Is it Andrew? Wait, who's Andrew?
Sorry, my name is Sharita. This is actually my son.
Okay.
That's his name. I'm sorry. I'm Sharita. I'm doing this as a part of the prerequisite for the nursing course. And I also heard that this course is very challenging, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, this is hard. Like I'll be honest. Like I don't like. It's hard for students to learn anatomy like on the virtual thing. So you guys are in for like. It is challenging, but I think you'll all do well. The last semester students did pretty well. So.
Okay. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you. Kelsey?
Hi,
I'm Kelsey. I am first time back to school after graduating from Salem State. I changed my major. Well, not changed my major. I don't want to do what I was graduated with, but I am going to do this for a prereq for the radiology course at Bunker Hill. So excited to start this off and go back to it.
Nice. And Christina?
Hi, my name is Christina Norton. Sorry, I logged on a little late. I was having difficulty, but I just finished the surgical technology program at Bunker Hill, and I've been working as a medical assistant, as a surgical tech for a year now at Winchester Hospital, and decided that nursing is really the path that I want to be going on instead of surgical tech. So that's why I'm taking this class.
That's a good point. When we're in class, it's a lot easier, but usually what I try to do with the students in this class is with the lab portion, I try to get you guys to help, like, not really cheat, but like give each other answers for the lab. And so it's a lot easier if you're helping each other on the lab. So especially somebody that already knows a lot about the medical stuff, like a surgical tech, you know, that could be helpful to the other students in the class, just thought I'd point out. And then
yeah, I'm really class helps me in my job because I'm doing orthopedics, and not having taken anatomy before has been hard. So I just think I'll have a better understanding as I'm working while taking this class.
Yeah, a lot of students think it's more interesting when they're in a job that's using it. And Olivia?
Hi, I'm Olivia. This is my second year at Bunker Hill. I'm also finishing up my prereqs for nursing. I used to go to Regis and I didn't really like it, so I'm over at Bunker Hill and I like it so far.
Yeah, Bunker's pretty awesome. I mean, just in terms of the admin, and a lot of the teachers are, I mean, they really want to be there. So, and the students blow me away, like just in terms of quality and ambition, everything. So, yeah, I've had an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's a great environment.
Yeah, I've been here like 10 years, I think now. Teddy. Be there, I think so. Is it Teddy? No. Okay, Christina. You should be next. But you already introduced yourself.
I did.
Okay. So that might be enough to get started. What I want to do today is show you guys on the desktop how to get going in the class, and tell you how the grading is going to be. Okay. Usually I'm going to try not to waste too much of your time with the online lectures and dive pretty much right into the material. In class, I use a lot of like Socratic method, where I'll ask the students and try to get you guys practicing saying these terms out loud, because that can be really helpful. You know, if you're in a work setting and you wouldn't necessarily know how to pronounce a lot of these words, and they're hard the first couple times, even though, yeah, it might not seem it. So, but in the online setting, I'll pretty much start with the lectures and get through the material, and then I'll talk in the labs about the lab assignments. And so, when you guys click the link to connect that I sent in that last email, it'll give you the option to register and buy an access code. If you got the school, if you order a textbook from the school, it would have an access code, or you can just go online and get it. It's a little cheaper if you click the link and just do that. And it's the same code next semester. So if you get the one this semester, you won't have to purchase one next. I mean, you can use it next semester for the class. You don't have to buy anything. There's a required lab manual that goes with this class, and I'm required not to say anything one way or another about that lab manual. I've gotten in trouble before. That said, all of the material that you're going to be graded on is right here. And so as soon as you log in, can everybody see this okay?
Yep.
You can see, okay, just making sure. And so when you go down the screen, the student version is a little different, but it'll basically in one web screen show all the assignments for the semester. They're all posted, they're all open, and you guys have access to them right now. So with that link, you can log in and have access to all the assignments. The grading for the class, because the first thing to make sure everybody gets an A. I mean, if they want to. The grading is going to be pretty much on how well you know the material. So it's pretty much a straightforward merit grade. And it'll be from heavily weighted toward the exams. So your exams will be once a month. There'll be an exam.
Hello? 1, 2, 1. Can everybody hear
Can
me?
you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I just got my audio fixed. I'm Teddy,
Okay,
by the way.
cool. No worries.
Yep.
So I was going to pull up the syllabus just to show you if you don't see the email I sent, you can always download the syllabus from the class website, and it'll show you the Zoom in case you lose that. It has the access code to connect. I'm sorry, not the link to it. And then it'll have the schedule for the fall. Okay. So today we're just supposed to get orientated, and I'm supposed to make sure you guys know how to succeed in the class. You can see that once a month you'll have an exam, and each exam will be 20%. There are no makeups, and the exams are done using this software called Proctorio, which will basically record you guys and record what's going on the screen on your computer. And so it's part of the McGraw-Hill. So when you log in, it'll be part of that browser, and you'll have to click to OK it. The exams are going to be from the homework and from the practice exams. So if you go back here, sorry about that. If you see right here, there's 3 practice exams that correspond to each real exam. And what I've done is I took the material from the homework, which in this class, AP1, is, so it's a nationwide criteria. Like, they send me exactly what I have to cover in this class, and it's ridiculous. It's like way more than any human could ever learn. And so what I did was to separate out like the material that you'll need if you go into a clinical setting, or you want to use this material in your personal life just for health and wellness type purposes. So though that material that's important, I put into the practice exams. And then the rest of the material that's kind of, you'll never see it again, but traditionally they present it in this class. It's kind of like all the professors that we had to take this class, so we had to learn this material. It's kind of like that they make it part of what you guys are required to do. Okay. And I grew up on a farm. We had chickens, and it was in New England, and you can't let the chickens outside New England because it's really cold in the winter. So they're in this big barn. There were like 5,000 of them, and they create a lot of chicken shit. And so we used to have to shovel that. That was our jobs as kids. And my dad was like telling me one day, he was like, these bags are all full of manure, and these farmers can buy it, and we charge them all this money, and it's like magic dust, and it makes the plants taste great and everything. And then it took me years to figure out the manure was the chicken shit. And I was like, why did you trick me so long? He's like, no, we're just charging the farmers a lot of money, so we can't call it chicken shit. And so a lot of the terms that you guys can be learning in this class are going to be fancy Latin, Greek terms for stuff you already know. The concepts are super simple. Okay, all of you guys, if you could register for this class during COVID, you're way smarter than you need to be to get an A in this class. But it's not going to be given to you easily. They're going to literally try to trick you in the way they'll give you synonyms for the same concept and use multiple words for it, as well as not telling you which concepts are important. So I tried to do you a solid by giving you the practice exams with all the important material. And in the lectures, I'll try to use, I won't read the PowerPoints, rather I'll explain which parts of the PowerPoint are relevant and why. So try to show you how you'll use the material, like in the ER especially. So going back, the practice exams, I crammed 140 questions. So each one has 140. They're all multiple choice. So, because I know test anxiety is like not a joke. So, especially in a class like this where everyone's stressed about the material. So what you want to do is open up these as soon as you log in, and don't do all of them at once, but start with exam 1 and submit it. So in the student view.
Don't do all of it?
Yeah, like the idea will be for you guys to learn the material, and you know, you have to learn one at a time pretty much.
Yeah.
Studies of the brain show the neurons in the human brain take a couple of weeks to grow if you want to put something into long-term memory. So what I did was set up like 1 month with each of the exams. And if you use like the first 2 weeks of that month, you can get this important stuff into long-term memory. That's the plan. But it takes a couple weeks of like going over and over. Okay. Now, one of the reasons I like teaching at Bunker is it's like real people. And so average student has like 2 jobs, 2 kids, and 2 classes. And so I don't think that you have any free time. That's my baseline. And so that's why I kind of set it up like this. This is where all the money is. I put all the grades on this, and it's kind of what you want to learn and take away from the class. And if you do go into PA or nursing, and you guys should definitely go for nursing masters like the NP, get paid way more. But you'll want to learn about Sutton's Law, because in the ER you'll be always using Sutton's Law. Does anybody heard of that?
Nope.
Nope.
Eddie Sutton?
Does it have to do with ethics?
Yeah, sort of.
Like somebody?
Is that like the Hippocratic Oath?
Sort of. So he was a bank robber, but doctors use, so he kept getting caught. When he got out, he'd just go and rob another bank, and everybody knew, and the police knew, and they would be waiting. So he always got caught, but he would break out of jail. And after like 6 times, somebody just did a story on his life, and they asked him like, why do you keep robbing the banks? And he's like, that's where the money is. And so if you're going to be getting a grade in a class, don't waste your time on where the money's not. Okay. And so in nursing, you'll do the same thing, especially if you guys.
Your mic cut out there.
In a nursing class, it'll go just as fast as this class. And so you'll need to just get a grade. You'll need to focus on making sure you pass first. Okay. I said the homework is where I put the material is not important. And so if you open up these, the homeworks you can submit, and they will show you all the answers as well, just like the exams. So you can open them, submit them, and you can do them as many times as you want. 30% of the exams will be from the homework and 70% will be from the practice. Okay, so practice is like where most of the money is. If you learn the 140, and a lot of the questions on the exam are similar to the homework questions. So like I said, you can submit this, see all the answers, like I'll show you the correct ones. And because you don't have time, don't study the correct ones first. And then you're gonna scramble each time you take it.
Having a little trouble hearing you.
Okay. The program will scramble the answers, like the order of them. And so you want, it's best if you can do it on the computer, but it's set up to, you can print it. You can print the homework or the exam.
You keep cutting in and out with your sound quality. I don't know if the mic is being pulled away and then put back in, but we're just losing on some of these more potent parts.
The Mac. Shouldn't be doing that. So the important thing about the printing is students that do print out the exams have trouble when they take the test because the actual test will scramble the order of the answers. Okay.
Now, as far as what we're supposed to study, it's going to be presented mostly in PowerPoints and online.
Well, yeah, so it'll be straight from the book.
Textbook,
in terms,
okay.
Yeah. So you can see I go chapter by chapter, and I'd give you like a traditional class, cover everything. But what you're going to be graded on, what I'm trying to say about the grading is if you look, the homework is only going to be 10%. Okay. And it's even worse because it's such chicken shit material that I make it that it's just for completion. So as long as you do the homework, it doesn't have to be correct. Your cat could do it, and you submit it, you get 100%. So it means you covered that material. And the point is to emphasize things like integumentary system, a lot of the bone features, some of the insertions and origins in muscle. We'll get to all those. They're called minutiae, little data. You'll never see those again. And they kind of distract from getting you a good understanding of the material. Okay.
Does reading the book will help also to complete the homework?
Yeah, I mean, some people learn. I learn better reading, but there's a lot of different learning styles. So I don't. I mean, I have like the reading, and I highlighted the important things in the book, and I posted that on the Connect. Okay. So if you look at the reading assignments, but they're optional. You're not required. Oh. And what I did was I took the e-text and I highlighted the good stuff. Okay. So if you launch, it's called Smart Book, and you can see what is what I thought was important from the text. Okay. So if you like reading, that's a good way. I would, if you're not sure if you have enough time, especially for the first exam, I can tell you if you want an A in the class, after doing this for so many years, what students that get an A usually do, like 90% of them, is they'll take the practice exam like 10 times.
Crying.
And I can show you examples. Like I deleted most of my classes, but like if you go back to,
No, there was something on the syllabus that said lab practicals. What is that?
they're tests or quizzes over the lab material.
And that's 2% of the grade, correct?
Yeah, 20%.
20%, okay.
Yep. And so here's a typical student from one of my previous classes. So this practice exam one, can you guys see this okay?
Yeah.
And you can see like, she was like, I'm gonna get an A. And I had one student with epilepsy, and like partway through the semester, she had to go for brain surgery, and they cut out part of the hippocampus where memory is stored. And she had to do it like 30 times, but she got an A.
Nice.
So doing the practice exams, because of the way that the class is graded, if you do them enough times, it ensures you get a good grade, most likely an A. The other part, you mentioned the lab practicals. There's 10 of those, and they refer to the virtual labs that we're required to do now with COVID. And this is what I'll do during lab day. I'll kind of go through these with you.
So we're not going into the classroom anymore?
The what?
We're not going into the classroom at all this semester?
No, it's all virtual for us.
Okay.
We got the remote.
I thought it was like a hybrid at one point, but I didn't know.
Yeah, they call it hybrid, but it's a trick because it's like we're not allowed at the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I think they must have changed it, like you're saying, because yeah, it doesn't. But and I think these are really stupid because I don't think they help students learn at all, and you guys don't have time to do busy work. So they're not part of your grade, but they are auditing me and making sure that all the students complete them. So I'll try to help you guys get through them during the lab sessions and try to just make sure that's all done. And when we do them, I'll try to point out the key things that'll be on the test from each of these. But they're basically like busy work with some useful terms in them. So.
But as far as the tests go, you'll be pulling material from the homework, the textbook, and the online labs.
Correct. So not the labs, just the exams will be the practice exams, 70%, 70 questions. And so each exam is 100 points, 100 questions. And you can see 70 questions will be half the practice.
Okay.
So I make it worth your while studies, those.
The other half will be from the homework?
The other 30 will be from the homework. That's correct. So 30. So the real exam is 100 points, 100 questions. And 30 of the questions will be right from the homework. So students do get 100 on the exams. I don't try to trick you guys. The exams are going to be after, so there are 3 of them. And the first one's after the integumentary, chapter 6. And I took out chapter 4 because it's on DNA. And I'll explain in the first lecture why. But so each one is going to have 5 homeworks and about 6 questions from each homework. Okay.
6 questions from each homework.
Yep. Okay. Roughly, it's not always exact.
And how many homeworks are in each exam? Like 3 of them?
5. So it'll be 5 homeworks per exam.
Sorry to interrupt. So just to reiterate again, these practice exams, we're not going to be getting docked on a grade if we keep reiterating and retaking exams.
No, not at all graded.
Cool. Awesome. Cool.
Yep. And you can do the homework multiple times. And you can do the practice exams multiple times. And then at the end of the class, there's a final. But it's not really a separate.
Oh, your mic cut out.
So at the end of the class, the last thing we have is, where'd it go?
10%.
the final exam. Okay, the final exam is actually exam 1, 2, and 3. Just kind of all together. And so because there's no makeup test, the final exam serves, in case something happened, which, community college, something always happens. Like, these kids were wrongfully arrested. I had calls to get them out of jail. All sorts of things I never expected. Lice. Anyway, so the point is something happens, you have to miss an exam. Don't worry about it because the final can replace it. Okay. And once the exams are open, like the actual exams open for you guys to take, they'll stay open so you can repeat them to study for the final.
Okay.
And the finals, I'm nice on it because I take out like 100 questions, so it's only 200 on the final. So that's pretty much the grading for the class. The labs, the trick with the labs, you can do them 3 times, the lab tests, and there are 10 of them. But each time you do it, you see your score, but not your which ones are correct or right, which ones you got wrong. So with the lab test, I try to get you guys to help each other because that's the fastest way to get those done.
We'll have 10 of them again?
Yep.
10.
There are 10 lab practicals that correspond to the virtual labs. Okay. And each one's 2%. You get 3 shots, and I'll take the highest score on each and average them.
I have a question,
if
possible. So from the practice exams, how likely are you to take word-for-word questions and apply them to the exam?
Well, like 50% of them, right?
Like word-for-word, what we see in the practice exam will be put
sometimes
into
I'll
the
change,
actual
like,
exam.
so they are scrambled. Remember, like the answers are scrambled? And sometimes I've like changed all to none of the below. So you just to make sure you know like what the actual words mean. But no, I won't change the wording. Like I won't change and add words and stuff like that. If there's numbers, sometimes I might change the numbers so you don't just like you actually do the learn how to do the question. Does that make sense? Like I won't change the grammar in the question.
Oh, your mic cut out.
Okay. Do you guys hear any of that?
The last word I heard was grammar.
Yeah, I'm not going to change the grammar or the actual vocab.
Alrighty.
But I might change like the order. If there's numbers, I might change those.
Oops, sorry.
Let's see. I think that's it. Oh, the due dates. I try to make the grade at the end as accurate, like, and based on how much you guys know about the material. It helps a lot when you're applying to like Mass General or one of the more competitive nursing programs. If I can, write a recommendation that they trust or whatever. So I try not to take off points if something happens, that's not really, I don't reduce your grade about something that doesn't have to do with the material. Okay. Which is why all the due dates are going to be December 19th.
Mm-hmm. Now, regarding the importance of grades, most require like a minimum of C to pass. Is that going to be bumped up because of the importance of the medical field?
I mean, you'll get what you get. about it depends on the class. I've had classes where a third of the students failed, or like 80% of them got an A with the same material.
Mm.
And it was an AP2, I think, but it's because they had a different teacher coming in, I think, when they failed. Like they just weren't, because there's teachers you can just get an A. I mean, they'll just give you an A. But yeah, so with the material, if you guys start now, you should have enough time. And during the lectures, what I try to do is the class is expensive. And so you guys could have gotten like an iPhone instead of taking this class. Not to rub it in or anything, but so what I try to do is make the class worthwhile for you guys. And so at the end, my hope is that you feel like, yeah, an iPhone would have been nice and all, but this will get me somewhere where I can actually buy a couple iPhones. It's kind of the goal. Yeah, so the goal is to give you guys some value added in the class. And so what I'll do in the lectures is use the PowerPoints, but I'm not going to read them. Okay, so, oh, I know what's going on. So this is a little full disclosure here. So there's there are 3 little kids that are all doing. Hi. So that's online kindergarten and online first grade and online preschool all at the same time. So that's why I keep cutting out. I'm sorry. We're trying to get it someplace I can go. I'm probably going to tether next week, so this won't happen again. But I'm sure you guys are dealing with the same stuff. Anyway, so yeah, with the lectures, I won't read from the PowerPoints, but I will try to explain them to you, okay? And go straight down the PowerPoints if you want to look ahead, if that helps you. And once we're done, I'll stop the recording and I'll post the lectures and the labs onto here on Connect. Okay.
So we can watch them anytime we want as like a means of studying.
Exactly.
Excellent.
And you can see this in another section I'm doing.
I have a question, Professor. What
Yes.
about the length of the class, timing?
So you guys don't have to stay around the whole time. Like, I'm just supposed to make sure that you log in, that I see you. But I'm not, yeah. I don't take it personally either. And people that had me physically in the lectures, you know, they knew that. I respect you guys have jobs and family issues and stuff. They're more important. So, you know, if you came in late to class, that was never an issue. Likewise with this online, you know, if you have important things, I'm just supposed to check that you're here, and I get a record when you guys log on. That's all. Does that answer the question?
Just to, for an idea, what time do you like have scheduled? Like an hour, 2 hour?
Ándale pues. So like it could go on like all day. Sometimes the students stay after, but there's too much material to cover in the time, like the 3 hours they give us. So I usually try to go through and hit the high points before people get bored. And kind of let students kind of ask questions about it, I guess. But then spend the whole 3 hours with students that are interested you know, trying to explain different aspects of the material that we covered really quickly. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
So yeah, if you, you know, just want to get a gist, it's probably like an hour and a half each class, hour. And each class, I usually start with the same kind of like, the same pattern, to try to show you how all the stuff's interconnected, starting with like the chemistry and the forces, and then building up through the cell biology. Because if you understand how the cells are working, it makes everything simple. And the way the cells work is simple, a lot simpler than, they try to make it sound complicated, but it takes about 2 hours to go through that, the first class, like how the cells work. And then we breeze through it in like half an hour at the beginning of each class. And then by an hour after that, we usually cover the material that's relevant. So that said, with the Connect that I'm showing you guys, has anybody logged on? I should check.
I think when you're looking at it, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm just trying to purchase it right now, so I'm not sure when I will get access to it.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna purchase it later today.
Holy cow! Yeah, yeah. They give you the 2-week courtesy, and it'll, like, if you do work, it'll save that when you get the code.
How do you get access to that?
So they charge like $90 for the access code.
I see.
Or it comes in the book from Bunker Hill. So if people order the book at Bunker Hill, it has access code in the back.
But you can't generate a courtesy access code for us?
I wish I could.
I see. Yeah.
They have like the textbook help in student affairs at Bunker Hill, like physical building. And even they can't get me access codes. Like for students that need help with books, they can usually get books. But this is kind of racket, the whole access code thing for the textbook company. And they all do it in different A&Ps, like different A&T textbooks. But this one, this McGraw-Hill, actually, their website works better for students to learn, because a lot like the NCLEX, which you take as a nursing license, and a lot like the T's, if any of you are thinking of taking the T's, there's actually a study they're doing on how much better this is to prepare students for the T's. So, yeah, it's like the best one I found, I guess, or the best one I've seen, and it can be helpful. The main thing is it lets a lot of students from really different backgrounds, different ways of studying, you know, kind of go at the material their own way. And it was cool when it was physically in class, because you could see the students help each other, especially A&P2, where we do like physical exams and start to do the clinical stuff. Okay. So what I would recommend is just, if you guys had more questions, I'm going to try to deal with a couple students contacted me. They're having trouble. I went through the reading assignments. Oh, there's a series of lectures a doctor posted that's, they're pretty good for students that are like visual learners that like that. So I posted those. They're not from the textbook and they don't necessarily cover what's on your test, but they're pretty thorough. They're more thorough than you guys need.
But you'll still post your lectures online too, right?
Yeah, so ours will go right here after class, bottom.
Where it
Right
says
below
lab
the
practical or virtual labs.
So like Zoom records it, I think, to their own cloud or something. And so it's a link, and then it'll stream from there.
Mm.
So it's like it's a web link that I'll post here that you click and you can stream it. I think that's it. Yeah, I wasn't sure. What would happen the first day? This whole COVID thing, they've had a lot of classes that they set online without kind of the infrastructure, without kind of technical support earlier in the year. And I taught online before to smaller classes, and Bunker's going big. And so they've had some issues. And so I tried to set this up with a slow start to get you guys acclimated. Do you guys have any questions so far? And can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody, let me see.
As far as our homework goes, it's just to buy the textbook and register online.
Yeah, you see that, like the due dates are all December 19th. The strategy that I can't emphasize enough, because all good students are used to, because they always get A's, they do the same thing where they'll study the homework, they'll read the chapters, and that always works for them. It doesn't work so good in nursing school. And so it's hard to get students, especially good students, to like adapt a little bit. And that's what I try to do with the class. It's tough if you guys wait to do the practice exam until like a week or two before. It's not that you won't learn it or cram it, but it'll start to mix with the homework, and then students can get overwhelmed.
So start with the practice exams first. And then,
Exactly.
Okay.
But it's so hard. You tell the students that over and over and they won't do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Essentially doing that, we're just priming the brain, correct, to be able to kind of recognize the patterns of the practice exam, to get the vernacular in place such that when the test time comes, it's just automatically there, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
When it comes to the practice exam, is there like a stop and save feature where you can go into it for a little bit, stop at question 30, and then leave, go do whatever you have to do throughout the day, come back and continue from question 30 and beyond?
Yeah, excellent point. I forgot that. So it does scramble the order, like I said. So number 2 is not going to be the same number 2 the next time you do it. Okay, so it'll totally change the order, and it'll change the order underneath. It's unlimited time. So if you open it, you can just leave it open and not submit it. So some people leave it open the whole, but I recommend it's the reps. If you look at kids that try to learn to speak, or people that are learning language, they'll make a ton of mistakes, but they just keep like kind of just mumbling it through, and kind of pick it up that way. So it seems to be the reps on the practice exam that help students more than actually focusing on it. You know what I mean? Like some students go through and they'll spend like 4 hours. But the best seems to be if you spend like an hour and a half.
And you don't have to have like a full complete run through each and every time you open it?
Yes, you don't have to. You can, like I said, submit it blank and it'll give you the answers. And so some students just do a few questions just to keep like fresh. And they'll do like 20 questions a day to see how they're doing. If you guys have public transport, God forbid, but some students use the T, and a good way to study is just to have the smartphone or a tablet on the T or something. Has worked really well. the key thing about the material that's on there as we go through, a lot of it is kind of interrelated, and you only start to appreciate it when you learn the stuff later. So you kind of like, if you remember the stuff in the first couple chapters, it'll make the stuff later make sense, especially next semester. And so if you guys are willing, if you're not burned out, I can give you a little teaser.
That question looked like a question I took in biology last year. Lactase, sucrose.
They always ask the same things, but they never try to connect them together for the students, so that the students don't see the how they're related to the stuff they already learned. It's kind of like every week you take an exam. Without
You had
having
to take biology to get this course too, right?
And so when you look at what's going on in the body, the human body, it's actually really simple. We're going to start with like the chemistry behind it. And as soon as you say chemistry to somebody, Susan, what happens when you tell somebody chemistry? Just say the word.
Chemistry, it sounds like connection.
Oh yeah. It's true, but I was looking for, like, most people's brain kind of freeze, or they just seize up. Like, it's kind of like when you see a fraction, you get that. You have to wait a second to kind of think about it before you're willing to react. So with chemistry is a terrible thing to start with, because you kind of lose the students. You have to convince them to listen. But if you don't look at the numbers or the math, the simplicity of the chemistry is what's going to help you guys. In biology, there's only 4 elements that make up 99% of the body. So the oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. And so if I can give you like a sense or a feel for how they, so I was a graduate chemist before, and mathematician before I became a doctor. And so that helped a lot with the biology part. But the way they teach the chemistry, chemists are kind of mean people, I think. So they don't tell you the key stuff about it first. So with chemistry, what you'll see is those 4 elements I just showed you. They're going to make biomolecules. And the key thing for you guys to know is how the different 4 behave, or whatever, what their personalities are. And so when you look at carbon, that's the key one they usually start with. And its shape, which they're not showing, like the real shape of it is kind of like a pyramid. And you know how in California, all those new agey people go meditate and say Om under the pyramids and stuff? They'll make, it comes from the chemistry. So the carbon pyramid has the electrons all equidistant, all the same distance away, and they're all in perfect balance. And so the energy of the carbon atom is perfectly balanced. And it's really hard to disrupt. It's got what they call equanimity, if you do yoga. So what you'll see with the bonds, they call them covalent. They use crazy, technical terms, like, oh, covalent. But what they mean is very balanced. And so you have 2 carbons that will come together. I was looking for the term. We'll cover it when we go through this chapter. But and they'll form what are called covalent bonds. But what you need to know is that means they're not going to break. Okay, they're going to be balanced. And carbon does that, but the others don't. So oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen have what's called charge or polarity.
Not ionic bonds?
Well, I mean, so the ions technically would be like able to dissociate like a salt. So, but they'll often say ionic because there's a charge involved. But they'll use terms like electrolyte, ion, just to kind of mess with you, these synonyms, so that you're like, well, that sounds complicated. It has electrolytes in that water. I'll buy it. So, but a lot of the terms are kind of masking the important part that you want to know. So you'll see here, oxygen, they show with a little negative, and the hydrogen a little positive. And do they give any explanation for that?
No.
It's kind of rhetorical. Yeah, no. They're just kind of like, oxygen is negative. Like, you should have expected that. They don't really know why. So I always say it's like, because mom said so, because you never would argue with her. She told you something. So it seems like oxygen will gain electrons and become negative. Hydrogen and nitrogen here tend to lose them and become positive. And they try to explain it by this rule of thumb, which is called the octet rule in chemistry, but it's not based on understanding the forces involved. And so when you talk about forces in chemistry, how many fundamental forces are there in the universe that are like present everywhere, even in like outer space in a vacuum? They teach you guys that in like kindergarten?
It doesn't sound like a kindergarten question, to be honest.
Well,
I'd assume
like,
infinite.
There's now it's
gravity.
Yeah, gravity. And so these forces are the fundamental things that cause change, and so they're responsible for everything that happens.
Energy.
Space,
It's
matter.
a slippery term. What?
Space, matter.
Those will be terms to describe like what's getting moved or what's getting changed, but I'm thinking like Thomas or like Benjamin Franklin.
Thinking thermodynamics.
Sort of.
Electricity.
Exactly. So electromagnetic force, the gravitational force, those are what they call fundamental forces. They're based on something specific, mass in the case of gravity, and charge in the case of electricity. They're fundamental, so you can't get away from them. There's only two other ones. And I call them the Jedi Force because they haven't really found out what they're based on. But they do know the two, electromagnetic and gravitational. So when they describe what's going on in atoms in chemistry, what they'll do is try to explain to you the structures and everything in terms of the charge. And they'll say, oh, this thing's positive and this thing's negative. And you're supposed to know the opposite charges will do.
Yeah, opposite charges will attract.
Right. And that's different from gravity. Gravity will only attract. Okay. The other thing that's weird is gravity and electricity have very similar, they have the same formulas basically, which depends on the distance. And so what you see with two charges, when they get really close, then the force will get really big. So the closer, the bigger the force. And inside an atom, you'll see all these things in this Bohr model. So this model for the atom is named after Niels Bohr, the soccer player, played goalie for Denmark. But he also was really smart physicist. He worked with Albert Einstein in Denmark. And he came up with this model for the atom, which is what we use. And he put all the protons in the middle and all the electrons on the outside. But the protons are all positive. And so what should they do to each other?
Repel.
Yeah, they should be pushing each other away. And when you calculate it out at the distance they're thought to be, the force away that they're pushing away is enormous. It's way bigger than any force we know of. And so this model doesn't make sense. It's stupid in terms of the gravity and the electromagnetic force. Gravity is about 100 billion times weaker than electromagnetic. All of these things that kids should be told, they don't tell students going through science. So if you see this model, what's holding those protons next to each other without getting pushed away?
Neutrons?
Well, I mean, what force?
Electromagnetic force?
That would push them away.
Hmm.
Because same
Gravity.
charge. Gravity's too weak.
Oh.
And I used to bring a magnet into the class to show students like how strong electromagnetic force is, but one of the students stuck it on the board and nobody could get it off. The maintenance couldn't go, so we just left it. But electromagnetic is like 100 billion times stronger than gravity.
Mm.
But it should be pushing these things away. What's keeping them in? You guys are all right. Like, nobody knows, but they know it's wicked big. So physicists have a sense of humor and they call it the strong force, because that's all they know about it. Okay. If you were to release a proton, the force that's holding them there gets released, and that's what they call the atom bomb or nuclear reaction. Okay.
I thought the atom bomb is when it splits an atom.
Right, when you release the proton from being held in there. All of that's kind of cool and interesting because it's mysterious and they don't know. What you guys want to know is that the protons won't ever come out.
Oh, you cut off there.
What you guys want to use is the protons are never coming out of the nucleus because that force is wicked big. Wicked pissa big, as the Boston people say. So you're never going to have a proton come out. And what that means is when you talk about atoms and they show you that table, what's the table called? Olivia?
Periodic table of elements?
Yeah, which is a stupid name because periodic does not help students learn anything useful about it. Like they're just kind of told, oh, these are 92 naturally occurring elements. I guess they didn't include it here. I thought it was in this book. A useful part about it is the protons. So as you go up and add a proton to an atom, it changes the element. So essentially a table is a proton table, and it lists the elements in terms of the protons as you go across. And the reason that it'll help you, like on the T's or on the NCLEX, as you go down in the table, each row, you more than double the size of the atoms. Okay, so we're going to talk about like nerves and muscles in this class, and you'll see that they'll have electricity, and the electricity will be due to these atoms, these salts. And the salts will have little protein holes that will open, allow them through. And if you know how big the salts are, it's going to be obvious which one's going to go through the hole first. And that's one example about the table, like how you can use it. And the other thing is simply on the test, on the T's, they'll ask you to count the number of electrons and the number of protons to see what the atom's charge is. And that's what I started with. So the nitrogen can lose an electron and become positive, and oxygen can gain one. So if you use that in biology, what you'll see is that there's this 3-carbon molecule that's super stable that will form. So there's a 3-carbon, I thought they had it here. I'm sorry, trying to go fast through this lecture, but there's a 3-carbon molecule called pyruvic acid, which again is a stupid name because it doesn't help people learn. What they should have called it is the hokey pokey, because what is a hokey pokey?
The dance.
Put your right hand in, right hand in, right hand in. I have to sing all the time with the kids, so that's why it makes sense to me. But how does the song go? Does anybody know?
I'd sing it.
You put it right in now, you put your right in there, you shake it all about. You do the okey pokey and you turn yourself around.
That's what it's all about.
Okey pokey.
So in biology, this pyruvic acid is what it's all about. That was good, by the way. Who was that?
Sharita.
Thank
I'm
you.
under Andrew. That's not even my name. That's my son. But
Okay, you got bonus points. Thank you. The pyruvic acid is the hokey pokey because in biology, that 3-carbon molecule it is what you can make or what you use to make sugar.
Yeah.
You take pyruvate and put it together. Other enzymes will take that pyruvate and they'll put a nitrogen on it, make what's called amino acid or protein. So you can take pyruvate and make protein. Other enzymes will take pyruvic acid and they'll make glycerol and then triglycerides. Fancy way to say they make fat. And other enzymes will take the pyruvic acid and they'll add protein and then go back with the sugar and make ribose with a deoxyribonucleic acid, which is also called DNA. So how many biomolecules are there? Right, there's 4. And all 4 are made out of pyruvic acid. But it gets better because you can take all 4 of them and break them back down into pyruvic acid because the 3 carbon bonds in the middle don't break. It's only the oxygen and nitrogen on the outsides that will break. And so with pyruvic acid, that's how animals and plants basically build their proteins, build their sugars, and build their fats, is all out of pyruvic acid.
The 4 are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and DNA, correct?
You're talking, we can't hear you.
It's kind of like Legos. So you can take the pyruvic acid and you can use it as a Lego and build either a protein or build a fat or build a sugar.
I see. Is this going to be on the test?
If you know that, it'll make the test easier. It also means the nutritionists are kind of scamming people. Because it turns out that if you eat sugar, you can make protein. And so in terms of your diet, there are essentials like there's 8 amino acids our cells don't make the enzymes to make. So we have trouble making, they're called essential amino acids and stuff like that. So there's minutia, but in general, all the stuff that happens in our body is based around this pyruvic acid and how it's handled. And everybody knows they send it to the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell and makes ATP and all that. But its use as a to make protein or fat is really important. You know that it can do that. They can go back and forth. In terms of the biomolecules, it gets easier because there are 4 of them, but one of them, DNA, doesn't do anything. So if you look at a nutrition label, it's not going to show you, it's going to show you the protein, how much sugar is in there, how much fat is in it, but it's not going to show you the DNA in a food you buy. Because DNA is not relevant to an adult organism. You don't need it. And that's why they'll use like fake DNA, which cells will use, kill them as a cancer treatment. So it's called chemotherapy. They'll use fake nucleic acids, and cells that are dividing will use them and they'll die. And because most of our cells are not dividing, they don't need DNA, and it doesn't hurt you. So if you don't worry about DNA, we won't talk about it in this class much. It's the other 3, the fat, the sugar, and the protein that are important.
Okay.
But it turns out in biology it's simpler because only one of those biomolecules does all the functions in the body. So when you talk about like eating, sleeping, walking, talking, it's all going to be done by the proteins. And so they don't do a good job showing why that is with the cartoons they make. But basically, you'll have these proteins that being able to form a shape. And it's the shape of the protein. I think they have one up here. The shape of the protein will determine its function. So they show you like hemoglobin, which will transport oxygen, and it'll do so by changing its shape. And so because proteins are all dissolved in water, we'll talk about how water will influence the shape of the proteins. And that's kind of the basis for all the stuff we'll cover. In terms of animals, how many different types of protein do they make? Like major categories of protein? So it turns out in biology, you should always say 4 if somebody asks how many, for whatever reason. Like how many types of DNA are there?
2, DNA and RNA, right?
Pyrimidines, but then there's 2 of each. So you got, adenosine, thymine, guanine, cytosine.
For animals?
Well, for DNA is, all life. But yeah, in animals, when you see an egg and a swimmy, they get together and fertilize. If you're doing embryology and you're watching the egg form, it'll start dividing. And what's going to be the difference between those cells as they start to form the heart or the eyes of the developing embryo? Is each cell has pretty much the same fat as the other cells, pretty identical. And the DNA in each cell is identical. They're all clones. So they all have exactly the same DNA. Okay. Just like the cells in your eyes and the cells in your feet have exactly the same DNA. But what's the difference between them?
Sometimes they get mistranslated and therefore like there's a slight mutation.
No, not in eukaryotes. That happens in prokaryotes, but eukaryotes have what they call repair mechanism in the DNA synthesis, so that they don't get mutations really. In case like the sunlight, we'll talk about that. Thymine dimers can form, but what's the difference between the different cells?
Their functions.
Well, but that's a circular thing. In terms of the biomolecules, they don't have different sugar. They don't have different DNA.
They have different functions. Like there's like fat cells, there's muscle cells.
The structure?
Yeah, I mean, which of the biomolecules?
Oh, you cut out there.
Which of the biomolecules is different in different cells?
I'm drawing blanks here.
So if you had a cell that's in your heart, that's like wicked important, or in your brain, wicked, and they don't look alike, but what's different in terms of the biomolecules?
Their function?
Their structure?
They'll have different shapes and functions and stuff. But in terms of biomolecules, the fat's pretty much the same. DNA is identical.
They carry different information? I know.
Scott says there's different proteins.
There you go. So yeah, God said, and she's not explaining why, but the protein in each cell is going to be different. And proteins are what do everything. And so you can be sassy and be like, what don't they do? But like they're literally going to do everything in biology, but people don't talk about proteins in terms of function in biology. Why is that? Why don't you hear like in biology class, oh, protein this, protein that?
Because they're losers.
Because they're trying to mess with you? No. So you know how like when you're little and kids like pour sugar into a glass of water and they freak out?
Yeah.
It's the coolest thing ever. Because what happens to the sugar?
It gets diluted in the water.
More than diluted, it gets
dissolved.
yeah, we say, oh, cilia just dissolved, but literally goes invisible, just like Harry Potter with that cloak. So literally you can put a solid into water and it'll go invisible. The water will turn it invisible. And that's what it does to the proteins. Proteins are soluble. They go into water, and so we can't see their shapes. Some of them we can crystallize, like this hemoglobin was one of the first. And so we've been able to find their shapes. Most of them we can't. And biologists don't like to confess that they can't. Because that's how each of the functions in the cells occurs, is the proteins will change their shape.
So when you're talking about this, are you also suggesting towards like protein pools that happen in the body? And do those protein pools actually happen also inside of the cell structure itself? Or are those more located just kind of throughout the body as you're talking about they're taking different shapes as required and as necessity?
Right, so nobody's really sure how the cell knows which proteins to make, like who told the cell to make those proteins? Because they all have exactly the same DNA.
The thing you mentioned earlier, like the little repair bits.
Does bioelectricity come into play here when it comes to those signalings of the proteins as well?
I just can't hear you anymore.
I think he disconnected.
Yeah, is he not hearing? Yeah.
Scott is the professor now.
Yeah, probably. It's probably weak. Oh, but I think he has to like start a new one if he disconnected. Because he's the host.
Oh, he's back.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
Um,
Disconnected there.
yeah, sorry about that. So that's what we'll talk about in the first class, basically, is to introduce you to guys the idea of these proteins. And it turns out their shape will be, in water, what chemists use to describe changes in water is charge. Okay, and so there'll be two types of charge that can change in a cell. And one will be with the electrons changing, and that'll be what they call concentration, or just simply the salt in the cells can fluctuate. And so they'll talk a lot about the osmosis and the tonicity of cells, but basically the concentration can change the shape of proteins, and so it can cause a function. And the other thing that can change its charge is, so water itself has charge, and it can gain or lose a proton. And it's called wicked positive water. It's called charged water. But when they teach students about the charge on the water, they use terms like acid and base, which tends to confuse the students because they think it's something other than water. It turns out if you put a proton or remove a proton for the oxygen, so you get the hydronium, which would be H3O plus, or you take away a proton and you have OH minus, it still behaves like water. And so they call those types of water acid or base. And in terms of humans, those are the only things that will be used to change the shapes of proteins. Plants use like temperature, but humans keep ours constant at 98.6. We don't like heat up so that we can, think better, whatever. So everything that happens in the body will be simpler, easier to explain to you guys from that point of view, in terms of the proteins doing everything, the water or the salts changing, and then changing the shapes of proteins. Have you guys been taught about acids in the body at all? In terms of like your blood, do you know what David, do you know what the pH of your blood is?
We did a lab on that.
Acidity.
Yeah, it wouldn't be acidic, and wouldn't it be like over? Wouldn't it be water is 7? Am I right?
Nice. Yeah, water 7.
All right, so I guess the pH normally would be like above 7, or if not,
Yes,
just neutral.
exactly. It's just a little bit above. You want to guess? Like, give me a number.
I'll go. I drink water that's has a pH level of 9, 90% of the time.
Whoa. Yeah. No, it's not that high.
No, it's not that high. So I'd say like a strong 8 at most.
You'd be dead if your blood was if it gets to 8, you die.
Oh gee. Okay, so it's like a 6 then?
This is above. It's 6, you die. So it's higher than that.
So it's 7.
7. If it gets to 7, you're dead.
5.
There's no winning in this.
No, it's higher than 7. Higher than 7.
It's higher than 7, lower than 9, so it's 8.
It's lower than that. If it gets up to
7.2.
8, you die. This is super important. If you guys work in the ER and you can't remember this number, like get a tattoo under your eyelid so you can always just check without people seeing, because you're gonna need to know it all the time. What?
Is that even possible?
It's 7.4.
7.4.
Is it really?
Yep.
Okay, I swear I guessed that one.
Nice.
Okay, all right.
That was intuitive. Yeah. So your temperature. People know temperature. They know 98.6 or 37. They heard of that. And if it's different, they'll be like, "Oh, you're sick." Like, "Oh, you must be feeling." If the pH changes, same thing. And you'll see kids on YouTube like playing with that, because you can get so you know how Coca-Cola you can use to clean your toilet and stuff, because the carbonation makes it acidic. So the carbonation and acid. So you breathe out the acid, and if you deep breathe, you can get out too much acid, and that's called hyperventilating.
Hypochondria?
Hyperventilating. So you'll see it all the time in the ER. People come in, they think they're having a heart attack. And Christina, what are the people with a heart attack going to do if they think they're having a heart attack?
They're usually like holding their chest, maybe?
Yeah. Chest pain, shortness of breath. So you call them CPSOBs on their chart. But are they going to be like just chilling, like hanging out?
Probably sweaty.
They're going to be super stressed and breathing really quickly. Even if they're not having, but they think they are, or they might be, they'll get really stressed and they'll start breathing quickly.
They actually like work themselves up too.
Yeah. And so it's dangerous because there's no buffer in the blood that's going to stop the pH from going up. And so if they breathe too fast, they can put their pH up and pass out. So how do you treat them in the ER? Charging like $500 for it, but like.
Hook them up to an IV?
Ooh. Insurance wouldn't cover that. But they would cover the $500 paper bag.
Lee says smelling salts.
Sad. All you need is for them to breathe into a bag. Have you seen that? Like where people give somebody a paper bag to breathe in?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Doesn't it like level out the like the carbon output with the oxygen input?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically they can't breathe this carbon dioxide out because they're breathing it back in.
Exactly.
So it doesn't let them breathe it out. And so that stops their pH from going up. 7.4 is magic. So you'll see like alkenes come in, they'll be like 7.3. Diabetic ketoacidosis, like people who can't make insulin. So it's super dangerous, the acidosis, alkalosis. We'll talk about that a lot. What about the concentration? Do you guys know what the concentration in your blood is?
It's like a good percent oxygen, and if it's not, you're sick.
Oxygen is not really necessary for humans because we developed from fish. So if you cut off the oxygen in the room, you'd be able to live for like 8 hours. You
I
don't
thought you
need
needed like oxygenated blood to keep breathing.
You need some, but you have excess.
Is the concentration the ratio between like plasma in the blood, or does that have anything to do with it?
Yeah, so each patient comes in the ER, you'll measure the blood and you'll get the concentration. And they primarily go for the salts. They'll measure the salts. Do you know how many salts there are in the blood? Salt ion.
I know there's like artificial salts and natural salts.
Like 98% of the salts in the blood are these. Susan, any guess how many?
Nope.
Just a number?
100?
No, I mean like different types. So like sodium is one. Yeah, Dave, you're a little high. You almost got it.
4?
Yep. So 98% of the salt in our body would be sodium, potassium, calcium, and chloride. And I don't know why it's all 4s, but like it makes it easy for you guys going through. So the 4 salts in our blood have a concentration of that bad movie with the Spartans. Did anybody see that?
Like 300?
Yeah. The unit's stupid, so they call it milliosmoles per liter. We'll get to that. But the 300 is one of those things you want to tattoo in your eyelid because you're going to do that on each patient in the ER. And the 300 cannot change or they will die.
And what is the 300 again?
It'll be the concentration of the sodium, which will range around 140. And these are numbers you need to know.
140 what?
Milliosmoles per liter. So the units are not going to help you, but the number will. I don't think that you'll ever get asked the units on a test. The reason is osmoles because so the sodium's a cation, and so is the potassium, but then the chloride's an anion. And because the water is essentially neutral, it's pulled equally by both cations and anions. So you want to know the concentration of both together. Sodium's concentration is 140. Potassium's is about 4 in the blood, and they do not change.
What about chloride and what was the 4th one?
Calcium.
What about those two?
Oh, sorry. So calcium will range a little bit around 6 is a good ballpark. And then chlorine comes in as it dissociates from the other 3. So it comes in with sodium chloride, potassium chloride, and calcium chloride. And it's going to be equal to the other 3 together. So if you do the math, 140 sodium, 4 potassium, and 6 calcium give you 150. And so they'll never talk about chlorine. It's kind of like Fight Club. Did anybody see that old movie?
Yeah.
And first rule?
No talking about Fight Club.
Yep. In biology, you don't talk about chlorine. So you literally see it on each of your patients' serology. You get the lab back. There's no chlorine. and they're saying just add it up on your own. And likewise, biologists will not explain behavior, even the development of charge across cells, which is clearly a positive on one side, negative on another.
The
They're not going to
chlorine
discuss.
is always 150.
It can change, but it's kept really tight. And you'll check for that. It's called an anion gap in some of your patients. The only way you can tell if they've been poisoned, like Game of Thrones. We'll get to that later on. But you don't look at chlorine except in cases of poisoning. You just assume it's 150, because the reason it would get knocked out of balance is because one of the positive ions would get out of balance. So those are what we'll talk about. Now the sodium is really high, it's 140, and the potassium is really low. So last thing, biology is what?
The study of like, isn't it the study of like things at a cellular structure?
Exactly. So study of life that's the definition they always give. And then the basic unit of life, they'll talk about the cell. Okay. But you could have a cell, a dead cell, or you can have a cell that was a live cell.
Got it.
And Christine, what's going to be the difference between a dead cell and a live cell? Because you'll see that a lot of times, that these cells that they think might be able to go in space, where they're able to go dormant, you know, and kind of like.
What's the difference between a dead cell and a live cell? You said.
A dead cell doesn't function.
Yeah, but that's existential. I mean, that's kind of like saying God exists or something.
Something about the membrane.
Mm-hmm.
The dead cell doesn't have one, or I think.
Or the membrane
it will break.
dissolves.
That's right. The dead cell's membrane will break down. Because it'll lose first, but first it'll lose something on its membrane.
I see.
That story by that woman up in the Alps that she wrote about trying to bring a dead guy back to life with electricity.
Frankenstein?
Bingo. And so the difference in that story between the dead and the live was the electricity, the charge. And so it turns out that all cells create a charge on the membrane, from bacteria, fungus, plants.
Oh, yeah.
So all the cells have the same charge on their membrane because they all use the same protein. And so that protein is called the sodium potassium. Have you guys heard this?
Yeah.
The sodium potassium pump. And it's a protein in the cell's membrane that will pump the sodium out and potassium in. And it's not just humans, it's all living bacteria, whatever. And so when the cell loses a charge, it's a dead cell. And that's why soap works to kill bacteria, because you just, the membrane is fat, and soap dissolves fat. So it creates holes in the membrane and loses the charge. And that's why soap's the best disinfectant.
I thought it dissolves the protein.
Well, the protein's already dissolved. It's the fat that soap dissolves. So it's called an emulsification agent. So it'll dissolve fat in water, which is why you should use it every day, like in the shower, because it'll take the fat and it'll dissolve it in water, so it'll go down the drain. And in cells, you don't want to dissolve that fat because it's what's keeping the charge outside different from what's inside. And so everything about that charge that the cells make, it's positive outside, negative inside, will drive every change you see in cells. And it's the reason why some viruses that are bigger than bacteria can't be considered living, because viruses don't have a charge.
It would be great if it worked like that for losing weight.
Just take a bath. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
love handles.
You said you studied math and chemistry before becoming a doctor?
So yeah, I went to Bates College, a little college in Maine, and then transferred to UNC in North Carolina, and that's where I did the math graduate work. And then I went to Duke for medical school. I like basketball. So the fat thing is really important because with what Teddy's saying, what's interesting about the pyruvate coming in the body is there's misconception because that fat sac lines our whole GI tract. So none of this stuff can come in that we swallow. You know, everything you swallow can't get into your body because it can't get across the cells because the cells have that fat sac. So when you eat food, you can't get fat by eating too much of the food. Because the cells will not bring in food except in these little protein channels, and they have specific ones for each of the amino acids, for each of the individual sugars, and each of the individual nucleic acids, and each of the individual fats also have receptor protein. So it's called specific transport. So they're only going to specifically transport in through proteins, which are really small, very small, what are called monomers. And so that's why you have to do what to your food before you can bring it in.
Okay.
Break it down.
You gotta chew it.
Yeah, you break it down first in the mouth, and then you
digest
it chemically.
Exactly, you digest it. If it doesn't get digested, it can't get into the cells, and it can't get into your body. And so the pancreas controls digestion. It only creates a specific amount of enzyme to break down just what you need, because too much is harmful. So the pancreas will only digest as much protein and sugar as you need.
So
And
riddle me
with the
this then.
fat, it's kind of cooler because what happens with the fat is there's something called bile. Has anybody heard the gallbladder and bile?
Yeah.
And that's going to be like, again, like Fight Club, where what was Brad Pitt selling on Fight Club, Jamie?
No.
I got to get new updated material because it's too old of a movie. So he was making soap he would dumpster dive at the lipo clinic. And growing up on a farm, we always used to make soap, but you guys probably don't make soap, right? So if you get Drano and some old bacon grease and you mix them, that's an easy way to make soap. So you just take old fat and you add charge. And so what the body does, it takes all the old broken down fat in your body, in the liver, it turns it into soap called bile acids. And those dissolve fat that you eat to bring in fresh, new fat. And so the system balances itself. And that's why you can't get fat by eating fat. That's the whole Atkins diet.
Oh.
Like, I tell the students, like, hey, if you just eat bacon, you lose a ton of weight. But then I don't really mean it. And like one semester, one of the kids did it. I mean, he came back, he's like, lost 30 pounds. Like, yeah, I just ate bacon. Like, that's not healthy. But if you can't gain weight with fat. And so next semester we do the butter stick challenge, where I get you guys to each try eating a whole butter stick, like right in one sitting.
What makes you gain weight? I'm curious to know that.
I'll get there. But it's not the butter. It's not the fat. What would happen if you ate a whole stick of butter? And so I tell the students, like, no selfies, but like what's gonna happen?
You'll go viral on TikTok.
The body would break it down exactly how it needs to be used. So triglycerides can be broken down into different ways in the body. So if it needs to be turned into glucose or a protein, it'll be utilized. And then if there is a deficit, is when you will lose weight. If it's a surplus to a certain extent, it will lead into the weight gain.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things going on, but most of the butter is fat, right?
Yeah.
And so the proteins can't digest fat because it's not dissolved in water, and fat won't dissolve in water unless you mix it with soap. And so the only fat that gets broken down is stuff that bile mixes with. So bile limits how much fat you can digest and break down to exactly how much you already broke down. So you cannot bring in more fat by eating it. The fat in your body is all made by the body. So all the stomach and behind, all the stuff that you don't want is being made by the body from sugar.
Oh.
And so the insulin tells cells, the adipocytes, to take glucose out of the bloodstream if it's too high, and to store it, to safeguard it as sugar. And the reason is because sugar is wicked toxic. And you know that if you've ever seen like honey or something, or K-Rose syrup, like you can leave that on the shelf forever and never goes bad.
Oh.
And so sugar will stick to everything in the body. And so the pancreas will check after a meal to see how much sugar there is from that meal in the blood going. And the blood from the intestine from the meal does not go back to the heart and to the body. It's the only time the blood doesn't go back to the heart. It goes to the liver first, so the liver can take all the sugar out. And the pancreas tells the liver how much sugar there is. And so your body won't break down extra sugar. So if you just eat potatoes, it's not going to break down extra starch. But if you eat raw sugar, it won't stop bringing it in. It can't limit how much it'll pump in if it's already broken down.
Oh.
So that's the only way you can get away, is if you eat something that has sugar that's already broken down. And what the government of the United States did was be wicked stupid, and they paid all these corn farmers not to sell their corn, so they keep the price high. And most farming in the U.S., like farmers grow a little corn at least. You get tons of subsidies, and the government buys all the corn. And what do they do with it?
They put it in the lab.
Yeah,
turn it into high fructose corn syrup.
Thank you. Yeah, because corn goes bad and rots.
Yeah,
So
they like burn it.
Yeah, some of it they'll make it into ethanol. They'll ferment it, but in some of it they do burn. But most of it they'll store. They'll convert it to the fructose, and then it's government subsidy. So every American, because we paid for it, the subsidy, has the right to request it. So you can go request the corn syrup. But like, who wants corn? The only people who want corn syrup are like Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, and Burger King.
Lord God.
And they get it for free because it's like, so anybody can get it for free, and that's why their food doesn't cost much, because the ingredients are free.
Wow.
And so, but they don't have to list how much free sugar. It's not just the fast. If you look at it in the grocery store, everything from the bread to whatever, it'll have raw sugar on the nutrition label. The liver can only take out 50 grams per meal. So if you have more than 50 grams, it goes past the liver, and that tells you how much weight you just put on.
So how much sugar make you gain weight? Okay.
Yeah, it turns out to be like 90% of it is just that. Some people have like, genetic predispositions, and they like the sugar more easily goes there than in muscle. Some people store it in muscle more, and so everybody's a little different. But the main thing is do you guys ever see Fluffy? Like the comedian?
Yeah, Gabriel Iglesias.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. But so he couldn't get that surgery, so he just stopped eating sugar. Lost like 200 pounds. But
eating sugar?
Do what?
He started eating sugar and lost 200 pounds?
He stopped.
Oh, stop. Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought she was.
But it's so strange because they emphasize more on starch. They when you eat less starch, that's when you lose a lot of weight. Nobody emphasizes on sugar, so I that's why I am like thinking.
So yeah, if you cook the starch, like it breaks down, sugar gets broken down from the starch. So like with the corn, if you cook it a long time, but most of it starch. So you eat more potatoes, you poop more. Eat more rice, you poop more.
And then I heard that potatoes have nothing in them. So if you eat potato, you're just eating potato, and it just have
it's like one of the healthiest things. So if you, because it has the 8 essential amino acids. So grandmothers kind of knew what were the foods that had those. They just kind of had that wisdom. So all the staple like rice and beans in the Caribbean, like all the staple meals will have those 8 essential amino acids, and rice and beans one, or potatoes, or the yuca in Africa. But so with the nutrition, it's really important about that pathway from the when you swallow things by the liver, because that gives the pancreas a chance to get the sugar out of the blood.
Oh boy, I love so much sugar.
It's awful because the sugar high, like the kids, that's the gateway drug, and then they want the hard stuff.
It's addictive.
That's what I'm saying. I eat a lot of sugar.
There's not a lot of good news in this class. I'm sorry.
Even just like drinking sugar, put the sugar in the water and drink it. Because back home in Jamaica, we think that it calms your nerves. Like if you're like so nervous or whatever, or if you don't have food, you don't have drinks, like you can just put the sugar in the water and drink it. And so I grew up with a lot of sweets, you know what I'm saying? So
that's what, if you go to a country, man, that's what they say.
And get some lemons and put lemons in your water.
But if you don't even have lemon, you just have a little bit of sugar, you just put the sugar in the water, mix it, put the ice, and you drink it. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's still part of the culture. Doctors are having a hard time because they've been saying for so long, the fruit's good for the kids and the juice is good. And there was a big scandal at Harvard where the doctors hadn't published the research because they got money from the big craft and things not to.
Wow.
But it also depends on your body too, right? Because I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, people are different. So, but in general, how all the bodies work is to use that. I mean, the pancreas doesn't care about how much protein it sees or how much fat it sees. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not trying to check for those.
We want to eat.
Because the sugar is almost like pyruvate, so it can literally bond to proteins or fat or other sugars. So it'll stick to everything in the blood. Just like when you pour honey on things, it get wicked sticky. So what'll happen with, they call it diabetes, but it'll happen gradually because the proteins are constantly being replaced. So if you stop eating the sugar, you'll replace the sugar-coated proteins. And that's why they say if you stop eating sugar, you can cure diabetes and stuff. But the type 2 diabetes, the diabetes mellitus, is not really a disease. It's more like a lifestyle. I mean, certain people are, like you're saying, predisposed to that because of cultural influences and genetically and stuff. But not most of it is like kind of what you're.
Well, your metabolism has something to do with it as well, right?
Yeah, but the pancreas will really only break down what you need.
Okay.
So, people that don't eat a lot, they don't poop a lot. They poop like once a week or so. But most Americans eat plenty, and so they have extra, so they poop regularly.
Sometimes you can eat plenty, but you still don't gain weight.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it'll go through you and just poop.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with a butter steak. It like floats when you poop the next day. Because like fat on water. Okay. But people are so brainwashed. You almost have to do that for the students to get them to like seeing is believing type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully the diet is a huge thing. It's the most powerful medicine. The studies show it makes about 10 to 20 years difference in people's lives, and no medicine besides antibiotics or vaccines comes close. So, but your doctor is not often going to talk to you about diet. There's no money in it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that going forward, hopefully will be part of like one thing that will be easy for you guys to wrap your heads around. A lot of things in the body, like the just different things that the kids will get, or that you probably know people, or even like the cancers and stuff, and how those happen, and why certain cancers affect certain people. It's a lot simpler than, there's a lot we don't know, but what we do know is not difficult to understand. So
You would think there would be a more emphasis on diet, because that way you can maintain a healthier, if you can maintain like.
I'm not hearing you.
yeah,
Can
what?
you hear me now?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you, Christine.
I was
should have
just
said
saying
something.
that
Thank you.
I'm kind of surprised to hear that diet isn't emphasized, when I think that with cancer, if you're able to eat healthy and have a healthy lifestyle, it will help you with the contributing the diseases that people
Yeah.
tend to get.
Yeah, it makes a big.
Christina, I've been in the field for about 10 years now doing nutrition and strength training with clients. And it's one of the things that the doctor, Jonathan Sheets, just said, is that there's no money necessarily in preventative medicine for hospitals and the medical field. So they don't want to put a lot of money into teaching and educating, because it means they lose a profit if somebody can actually take care of themselves.
And you guys, please do not repeat things I say outside class, because I'm mostly just trying to keep you awake. I'm not saying things because I think or believe these things that cynically, but I'm kind of cynical. I did, sorry about the car in the background. I did give up my AMA membership because there's too much money, too much stuff I saw people were doing was wrong, and just about the money in healthcare. And it's not all about the money, but I mean, you see people in the ER, and the wait times are, a little longer than McDonald's. And then they turn in like, there's always some sort of procedure that people get done, like IV, when they finally get seen on the other side. And a lot of times, the reason people need an IV is because they haven't drank anything in a couple hours. But then you've done a major intervention because they're dehydrated. You put a fluid in, you get $800. You can charge insurance. All insurance will cover it. And just little things like that you see. I'm gonna mute.
What's that a bottle of?
I've got a car alarm behind me. I live in Lynn, so this is a little bit not the best place. The school was not.
Fall River.
Oh, wow. All the way across.
I
So,
don't live in Fall River. I live in Hyde Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll find a quieter place next time. This worked before, but it was a different time of day. But yeah, that's how the class will go. Usually I'll just use the PowerPoint, so you guys will just follow that and then definitely jump in. But I didn't think you'd be interested to go through a whole I wasn't planning to give you guys any homework or anything tonight, so you're all good.
All right.
Alrighty.
Any final thoughts? Any last, Jorge?
We can start working on our stuff now, right?
You can finish the class by the weekend if you want. Except for the exams. But I mean, if you study the homeworks and the practice exams, those are the questions on the exam. So, and all the labs are up.
On Friday, correct, from 9 to 11:30.
Pardon?
Are we meeting on Friday from 9 to 11:30 as well?
Yeah. So the Friday will be the lab, and so you just
Okay.
have to check in. I'm just supposed to make sure you guys check in, and I'll record it. So, when they're threatening to do an audit of all the classes, make sure people are actually attending, just for the credentialing and stuff. So yeah, as long as you log in, you'll be good. I won't.
All the things that we discussed today, they're going to be somewhat relevant to the class.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what you'll see of the material that I pick out, I made a serious effort to try to make sure it was proportional to how useful it is in the clinic.
I see.
And so when I'm explaining stuff that, the way you'll be thinking when you see a patient coming in, like the material that you use from the cells, from the skin even, there's even some stuff from the skin you'd use. I'll try to grade that more highly, or like, pardon me, a good example would be like the bones. You get to the bones, and there's a lot of bones in the wrist. And you ask any doctor, and they're not going to know them. They're not going to know the names of those bones. And
well, I have like an underlying interest in anthropology, so I know like this is your ulna, this is your radius. I was pointing at my forearm here, but
yeah. So they'll know like the arm bones, but like when you get into what they call the carpals, yeah, they won't know the individual ones, but there's one you should know that's a scaphoid.
Scaphoid.
And so like when you're in the ER, you see that like kid with a hoodie and the jeans kind of sagging down. He's got that skateboard on his arm. He's coming holding his wrist. You can just be like, oh, it's broken scaphoid again.
Scaphoid is what connects your forearm and your hand?
It's specifically the bone right under the thumb. So like that connects the thumb to the radius. And it's a curved bone. So when you fall and you put your hand down, it snaps every time. So that's the one that breaks. And so as long as you guys know that, you can amaze the doctor, be like, that's a broken scaphoid over there. I bet you $90, and get some money. But what you'll see in medicine, the same things go wrong every single time. And you just see them over and over in the ER. And there's nothing scientific about it. They're just like, oh, scaphoid. But when you see the shape and stuff, you'll understand why. So anyways, I grade that. That's the only one I'll test you on of the carpals, and I think it's worth 2 points on the test. But that's an example.
I see. Alrighty. See you on Friday.
See you guys. Bye for now.
Have a good one.
You guys stay safe.
Thank you.
Go.
Bye.
Thank you.